So if you're struggling with early extension, where in the downswing, that butt's moving towards the ball, the chest and head moving away, causing inconsistent path and face and contact, well, in this video, I'm going to talk about a few main things that I see out of players that really cause them to have early extension happening. So let's get into that right now. Okay, so to start off, I want to say that early extension isn't always caused technically. It can sometimes be rooted in mobility issues, so physical issues, meaning that one big one is having very limited mobility in your lead hip. So for me as a righty, my left hip. If I don't have much mobility to rotate around this front leg here, especially while kind of keeping my butt back, and I can't really turn into it very well, then there's no chance that I'm going to be, or very difficult for me to go and keep good posture, good angles, and rotate around that, okay? The other one is a good test that TPI has, where we're kind of kneeling in a posture like this, is can I go and lunge to get my knee to this stick that's a few inches out front of my foot, okay? And if I can, that means that I got good mobility through this part of my leg and foot. And you can imagine that in starting the downswing, I need that bit of mobility here so that I don't just go and all of a sudden just start straightening forwards like this. If I'm going to go and push my butt back here and rotate, you're going to notice that there's an angle in here. Okay, so if I have really poor mobility in this part of the body, then that's where we can see some trouble and some early extension starting. Okay, so those are some physical issues. Let's get into some more technical issues now. So one common thing I see with players is in the backswing, the lead hip will come and turn around and get a little closer to the golf ball, okay? But the problem is now that this lead hip has kind of come forwards, in the downswing, this trail hip, a lot of times people just come and meet that new level of where that lead hip is. So if we think about where that butt started to begin with, now that lead hip comes forward towards the ball, the trail hip now is going to come forward to meet that new lead hip position, ultimately bringing us off of that butt line where we started, okay? So a really good drill. It's one of my favorite drills to really demonstrate and show early extension and how we can learn the opposite feeling of what early extension is. So alignment stick, we're going to throw it through the belt loops, more on the trail side, want coming out. Okay, we're going to need a chair or some object that can come high enough for this drill here. Okay, so we're going to be in a position where if I just go and essentially bring my trail glute around the corner like this, I'm going to run into the chair. Okay, so what we want to be doing here to learn opposite of early extension is in the downswing, I want us to be thinking about getting this alignment stick, getting my belt and working back under me as I'm rotating, trying to get this alignment stick to miss and go underneath that chair. Okay, totally opposite of early extension. Really powerful drill. We start small and we're going to start speeding it up. Essentially, just like I said, we need to learn to get this working under us as we're rotating. Sometimes I like to just think about taking at the top of the swing, taking that lead hip, the front of that lead hip, and like I was just going to go and push it back as you're rotating and through. Okay, so a really good drill. This is kind of where I'd like to first start with players to get them to understand what that feeling is, opposite of early extension. Now let's get into a few others that can be causing early extension to be happening. So now that we got that sensation, that doesn't mean that early extension is just going to go. Because if you got things out of place, like club face, what I'm going to talk about next, or getting steep, if those things are still happening, then eventually you're going to go back to early extending because that's the best chance you have to hit a playable golf shot, right? So essentially we're just trying to get the ball to move towards a target and our body figures out a way, and it might not be optimal, but it happens. So like I said, one of the main things I see is open club face in the downswing. Okay, so if we have an open club face coming in the downswing here, then if I kind of stayed down and rotated into this really nice position, then I'm going to just have a wide open club face, right? So Opposite of that is or kind of the fix to that, and again, not efficient, but is to kind of stand up and start throwing the club head, kind of cast and scooping the club head, all in an attempt to square the club face, right? Again, trying to hit a playable, somewhat of a playable golf shot with that open face that we have. So in that case, you know, if we're checking and in the downswing, our club face is either straight up or back a bit at all, that's going to be too open. We want that club face to be a little bit on an angle, similar to our spine there in the downswing, so that I can keep that butt back and rotate and hit into the ball and have it come off straight. Okay. Next one would be just getting steep. Right? If I'm coming in the downswing and I get kind of over the top's not always the end of the biggest issue. It's just that shaft is just too much up and down as opposed to kind of shallowed out on an angle. When it is up and down like this, well, essentially, if I keep that back and rotate, I'm just, you know, going to be hammering down into the ground, right? So the best way to work around that steep shaft is to stand up, because now that standing up motion kind of almost allows a little bit of a inefficient shallow action. Okay, standing up allows the club to kind of fall in behind a little bit, which can kind of help offset that steep shaft. Again, these are just ways of making a ball move forward, but not the best. So if that's the case, we'd want to, you know, watch one of the million videos out there right now on how to get that club a little more shallow, so that we're not getting too steep. And then the body would be thinking, okay, now that club isn't so steep. I can keep that butt back and rotate. I'm not going to come way over it, come into it and deliver the club efficiently. Right. And next one we'll talk about right now is setup. A lot of times people just overlook setup. Well, if I'm a bit close to the ball and kind of sitting in my heels, then typically in the downswing, our body's gonna try to get us back to balanced, which is closer to the center of our feet. That action is causing the body to move towards it, which is gonna start getting us a little bit too crowded in here. So the body just wants to stand up so that it can fire the hands through, okay? Opposite gonna be those getting too much over the toes. So if I'm sat up and I got the back of my armpits over in front of my toes here, well, from there, it's really tough to rotate. It's hard to rotate hips when our pressure's too much on our toes. So in that case, starting down, probably get that club a little bit too out this way. So then in that time, we try to kind of stand up and suck it back to try to get it on a decent swing plane. Okay, so definitely don't overlook setup. Trying to get into a posture here where back of those armpits are a little bit more over the balls of our feet if I go and draw a line down there. Okay, that'll help you maintain all these angles while staying balanced through the swing. All right, so there's some things that can cause early extension. Really good drill that I really like the feeling of getting that back and rotating to kind of learn how this pelvis and these hips should be working through the shot to, you know, the opposite of early extension. So give those a try. Make sure that club face is square. Make sure that club's not too over the top. Work on that drill, and early extension will slowly come around. Don't forget to work on mobility, okay? Because that can also be the outlier that a lot of people don't think about. Till next time, see you later.